Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Foster Romano, sitting in for my big brother Ernest Odame. You're welcome to the Men's Lounge. And tonight, well, I'm going to help handle the affairs for my brother. So I'm sorry if you're expecting Ernest, but here I am, fine boy, cute face, looking all manly, because I have to fit the Men's Lounge. Yes. So tonight, I love the topic so much. It's very, very controversial, very risky, and very slippery. Just wordplay. Anyway, but before we get talking, let me just say that I have two very gallant gentlemen here who are going to help in the discussion. One is a clinical psychologist and a medical doctor by the name Dr. Isaac Newman Arthur. So Dr. Isaac Newman Arthur is a medical doctor and a clinical psychologist. And then I have Eustace Akwe, who is an educational administrator, an MC, and a sports analyst. Yeah. Today we are discussing masturbation, a biological necessity or a health risk. This could be a debate actually, like is it a biological necessity? Because when you read about masturbation, some doctors are of the view that it is necessary for a man to actually do that, and then some are also saying that it also has or have a lot of implications on the individual. Let me go for a quick commercial break. When I come back, I will introduce my guest again, and then we get the discussion started. Stay tuned. Okay, you're still tuning in. This is Men's Lounge. My name is Foster Romanus, and I'm sitting in for my big brother, Ernest Odame. So before we went on the break, I told you about the topic we are discussing. We are discussing masturbation. Now, is it a biological necessity or is it a health risk? And I have Dr. Isaac Newman Arthur, who is a medical doctor and a clinical psychologist. And then I also have Mr. Eustace Akwe, who is an educational administrator, an MC, and a sports analyst. You can join us on WhatsApp at 02022222054. That is the WhatsApp line, 02022222054. Gentlemen, you are welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome to the Men's Lounge.
Thank you.
Like the way Doc make quiet like that. Now if you guys say, but that's like, man, you match and affect us. Or today had the stressful day at work.
Oh, I think generally stress at work.
Wow. So how do you people distress?
It's difficult because you really don't have control over your time.
Yeah.
And I think if there's family, there are friends, there are activities here, like these shows. These shows are distressing.
They help you to distress.
Yeah, it's
Does
kind of.
masturbation help? Like
I'm not into that. I'm not into that.
Doc, say you can help. Okay, we'll get there, but then does it help? Does it distress? Not like you do it, but then like on the other side, does it help?
Yeah. So usually when there's a discussion about issues, you should have a holistic approach to it.
Yeah.
You cannot overly simplify, issues and people's experiences because these things are real.
Yeah.
What we are talking about now, I think some research has even put up to 40% of women, masturbate, and up to 60% of men, at some point masturbate. So we can talk, but it's something that happens, and so it cannot be overly simplified, So basically, masturbation has to do with people having sex with themselves, or an imaginary, person, and it gives them a certain heightened sexual experiences and may end up in orgasm, So the issues around it has to do with the orgasm aspect. And the reasons why people masturbate. So those two things, either the benefits or the disadvantages and the overall impact is dependent on these two.
Okay. Let me introduce you, Stace, and then bring him also into the conversation. So Doc is talking about the reasons and why people do it. And I mean, from where I picked it from, with regards to how he distress. You are an MC, so probably your work helps you to distress most of the time.
Obviously.
Not to ask you if it does help, though, but then let's look at what causes people to actually masturbate, and then let's make it as as formal as possible, make it more a conversation than a question and answer session. So let's straight on the floor. What actually makes people masturbate? Why or what makes them do that?
So I will just talk about 5 basic things. One, out of curiosity. So people start masturbating because they've heard it and they want to try it.
Okay.
So they really don't plan it. There's no agenda, there's nothing. They just try it. The second is some people are introduced to it, some very early. There are some kids who masturbate because a house help or a cousin or a relative, introduced them to it, so they may even lose control over that kind of behavior at a very, very early age. So there are people who have probably, have attended to who may have that problem, and that becomes sexual abuse in a way.
Yeah, really
so some people get involved in masturbation because they've been introduced to it by peers or by relatives or some people who took advantage of them. Then also people use masturbating to cope with situations. So life stresses and issues around because of the advantages of sex and orgasm. Usually when people have sex or masturbate, there are basic hormones that are released. 3 principal ones are dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins. Dopamine is virtually the happiness, hormone. So anything that causes happiness, there's actually, a chemical in the body that is responsible for that. Then also oxytocin is that pleasant feel that you have, when, for example, when you hug someone, it feels good because
that warm feeling.
So the pleasure hormone, oxytocin is also released. Then also endorphins. Endorphins is responsible for pain. So all these chemicals, even with testosterone, with prolactin, and all kinds of chemicals are released during sexual activity and also masturbation. But the difference between normal sexual activity and masturbation, maybe we'll come to that, but basically...
You can bring it now.
So basically, actual sex may be, as a result, a product of intimacy.
Okay.
Masturbation, there's no intimacy aspect of it. So all these hormones I'm talking about, especially with oxytocin, the release is more and better with actual intimacy because you have a real person. You have a certain kind of relationship with that person. You are having some conversation with that person. The feeling of some love and care and all that, with that person improves on these things better than even masturbation. So people use masturbation to cope because of all the positive things around sex and orgasm. Then also people use, I would cautiously use the word perversion, because some people may be hooked on to some kind of pornography or some sexual behavior, and they may use masturbation as a way of getting away from or continue that kind of sexual behavior. So they may have some perversive sexual practices, and masturbation may be one of them. Because there are all kinds of perversive sexual practices. Then also it may be as a result of when people. So I've talked about cope and adjust to situations. Then also when people are failing to deal with some problems in their lives. For example, some people may use masturbation to feel a certain way because of a certain kind of traumatic sexual experiences. So some people who I have also attended to me have been raped in the past. So that rape initiated them into a certain kind of sexual, I will use the word spree, like sexual,
rape.
something. Yes.
So that's supposed to be very hurtful and painful.
Yeah, so people may go negative or positive when it comes to rape. And there's some people, when they're raped, they even use sex as a revenge. To punish people, or they develop some kind of abnormal sexual behaviors. It can also be a product of those kind of experiences. Then also, when people have a certain kind of mindset and perception about sex, sex has a certain kind of I'm using the word moral in a very, very, in a certain cautious term.
Okay.
Sex becomes something moral, becomes something private, it becomes something, I won't use the word holy, but it becomes something that has to do with, something that goes beyond an activity.
Yeah.
That's the better word. It goes beyond an activity. Sure. And so when some people lose that sense that sex is moral, sex is this, sex is that, and because of that, they easily get involved in sexual practice without even thinking about it and whatever is around that. So that becomes one. And one last reason I'll add also has to do with the fact that people, masturbation is orgasm that is safe.
Yeah. Okay. So then that one, I think I get that one. Yeah.
So masturbation is orgasm that is safe. You know, pregnancy and STIs and everything may not be around. So people actually prefer masturbation than that. Then I forgot to add, in probably a marital relationship, people use masturbation as a way to cope. People use the word top up. You know, from sex that has gone bad or sex that is inadequate or the unavailability of the partner. So that becomes escape. So instead of instead of go cheat, let me just do it myself. So people use that, you know, as a way to top up and all that.
Let me bring you Stacey. I mean, Doc has said a lot, but then I'm sure. So let's say Doc has given us the clinical and then the doctoral reasons, exactly the biological reasons why. Let's come to you as an entertainer and as a normal guy. What do you think are some of the reasons that makes guys or ladies or people masturbate?
Well, Doc obviously touched on the biological aspects, but I mean they overlap because those same things are in our everyday affairs. Yeah. So obviously, like you said, people normally do it to de-stress. Sexual perversion is also another aspect. But you see, looking at it from a layman's point of view, I would say that it's something that a lot of people, especially in their early ages, adolescence stages, are exposed to. Mostly through when you do a little survey, you see that most people started really early.
Yeah, because per the survey we have here, between 14 to 17 years, you have about 74% males between that age who masturbate, and then 48% females within that particular age, 14 to 17 years, who masturbate, and that's very tender.
Yeah, that's quite. It's a serious issue because as an educationist, I've seen toddlers, I've seen kids even exposed to this kind of practice. It's something that you can't really put a finger on that it begins at this point because there's so many factors that influence it.
What are then the factors? Is it like to say that then these children who are in schools don't have the right, like as an education, is it like they are not taught in schools, or back home parents desist from introducing their kids, to that at an early age?
Obviously, Foster, we have the religious and moral education in our curriculum, and it's supposed to touch on adolescence and sexual life, and and for topics like these, they've actually brought it down a notch. So it starts as early as class 3, class 4. When they are 9, 10, they are started, they start teaching them about their sexuality.
Even about book, we started complaining about
there was that issue about a textbook.
So there was that bad or it was good?
Well, it's totally subjective, and it depends on who's looking at it and the angle at which it's coming from. But you see, it's being taught in schools, and let me cautiously also say that it's limited.
Okay.
You see, because there are some topics like masturbation are directly not discussed in the curriculums.
Okay.
So and in this modern era, we are in 2021. So there's so much exposure. The children have so much exposure. The internet. They are exposed to pornography when their parents are not aware, friends, social gatherings. I mean, there's so much exposure these days, so you can't really tell when a child is supposed to pick up a behavior like that. So maybe from home, from school, you can't really tell. It's all over us. It's all over us right now, and without the right parental guidance, obviously, a child may pick it up. Because I'm yet to people who have told me in person that they masturbate I'm yet to meet anybody who's going to say, oh, well, I started when I was 30.
Yeah, it's
obviously it's always early in life. Some people are able to get out of it, some people no. I'm not saying it's a negative thing directly too, because Doc has given a lot of good reasons.
We'll get to that, but Doc, let me also bring you in here, because then it's two-sided. There's the school factor, and then the health officials. You also have a role to play in there, don't you, with regards to education? Because if it's not being taught, can the health institutions also take it as a mandate to say, you know what, let's find time, like how we educate people on polio, this and that and that. Find some time, because like he's saying, it's obviously not in the curriculum. So then it's more or less like it's covered B, so that you can't talk about it?
When it comes to sex-related stuff, especially in this time in the world, it's a very, very difficult, challenging thing that to be able to address it because of all kinds of influences from Western world, from whatever, and so talking about it is difficult. That is why people shy away from it because of all the reasons. Maybe we'll talk about some of them later. So the healthy space to talk about it is when someone talks about it in a way that helps the person progress instead of make the person's life worse. So there's a way, personally, when it comes to any topic, I address it in a way that makes the person progress.
Okay, so let's look at.
So, so if you have a professional who is talking about it, it's better than someone who talks about it based on what they think.
But you're a professional.
Yeah, so what it means is that we would have to be doing more education.
So
more
that
talking
means that
about
we can
it.
accept.
And you also have to be sensitive to the person's age and how far you can go and how they could even understand it. Because you can't go in front of a kid and talk about some things.
How do you then do it? Because then, per the stats, at the age of 14, so that means that probably the intent or the mindset, or he started getting drawn to the thing maybe from like 10, 11, and then, trying it, and then maybe by 14 he was a pro or something.
I personally think once they are old enough to have an erection, I'm talking the case of males, because the problem is not one gender sided.
Babies have erections. So.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I have a son, so I know. But
Okay.
once they're able to consciously
Probably
realize,
when the mind is
consciously realize that I have an erection and I could self-stimulate, I think the education starts right from there.
So should we give an age limit?
Well, usually during the adolescent stage when all the hormonal things are
so
happening.
Like 10?
Yes, it's very, very. If you meet a child, children have all kinds of erections and whatever. If you meet a child masturbating, right? Maybe in the word masturbating, they may not have all those what do you call it, ejaculation and all, they may not, but if you see a child engage in any sexual practice, you always have to find out why.
Okay.
Like I told you, maybe because a cousin or something is even abusing them. Or I think there was a story that came up where two kids, mother leaves them in the hands of a cousin or someone, and in their absence, the cousin who is very older would introduce them to pornography.
And then ask them to touch.
And ask them to, so when you meet a child, maybe even in their early teens and stuff, where they may not even have access to information, if you meet any child who is involved in any kind of sexual practice, you always have to look beyond the practice. Sometimes, especially in an environment, we dismiss them, we condemn them, and throw them away. But maybe as a result of big job, things that is happening to the child. So you always have to look beyond the activity and find out why.
But it looks like the word itself, masturbation, is some way, somehow, difficult to pronounce. In those times, it was sex education. It was difficult to mention even the parts of the bodies, the private parts, etc. So it was the way like, our parents were giving it different names and all. Now, masturbation too, which is now, taking over, it's difficult to actually talk about, like, pronounce the word masturbation like you were saying to a child. So if you're going to educate, how are you going to present it? What name are you going to give to it that is going to make it easy for you, the one teaching, to mention it freely to the kid to understand?
Well, it may not be the name, but it's how and what you talk about that becomes the problem, because everything has a name. And especially for kids, if you don't tell them right names, what you tell them is what they pick. When especially kids come to the consulting and they have all kinds of names for
my mother called it for that.
But in our time where the access to information on TV and internet is parents and educators would have to be very, very specific about what they're talking about, because they will go read, they will go find. And now even for some of these kids' cartoons, they have all kinds of names and all kinds of pronunciations in there. And for an adult can decide to make sense out of a conversation, but a child may not have the cognitive capacity to be able to make sense out of those things. So the safer person may be a parent to be able to discuss it in a context that makes the child progress.
Okay.
And not necessarily
only.
Yes, and also like we talked about teachers, what do you call it? Medical professionals in a way that would help the child.
Okay, so you can join us on 0202222054 if you just joined us. We're talking about masturbation. Is it a biological necessity or a health risk? Send us your messages 0202222054. Now, Doc, this one I'm coming to you. Is it then a biological necessity, as in the body needs it, or is masturbation a health risk, as in it can damage?
Okay, so let me so like I said at the beginning, to be able to deal with things appropriately, you have to be very holistic.
Yeah.
And always go beyond the why, what the people are doing to look at why. Yeah. So the why may be the influencer in whether it's a health risk or a necessity, and also the impact of whatever is happening to them. And generally, we determine impact on 4 levels. 1, is it causing the person pain or distress?
Okay.
So because you engage in a certain kind of activity, is it causing you pain or distress? Pain can be physical or emotional. That is the first one. The second one is that, is it causing you dysfunction? So because of what you're engaging in, is it affecting your functioning, your day-to-day functioning? Is it affecting you negatively? The third one has to do with damage. Is it causing damage to things around your relationships, your work, and everything around you? Is it suffering because of what you're involved in? Then the fourth one we look at, especially when it comes to these issues, it's even under mental health. What we are talking about is under mental health.
Yeah.
Is it a deviation from social norms? Okay. Every behavior, every activity, regardless of what it is, we function in a certain context. And when anybody deviates from that context, you need to find out why. Because the why may be something that may require some kind of intervention. So that is the first aspect I would talk about.
So then
the second thing, I'm being very cautious about what I'm talking
I
about.
get you know, we'll get there.
So you really have to find out that everything I'm doing or involved in, is it causing these things? If it's negative, then you have to look at it again. The second thing is that when you are discussing things, human beings are very complex, and they have different experiences around them, and they are involved in different things. So there is a religious, spiritual aspect to everything. There is a physical aspect to everything. There is a mental aspect to everything, and also social aspect. These 4 things is the definition of health: physical, mental, social, and spiritual. You cannot discuss masturbation on a spiritual or religious level without going into problems. Because all religions have an opinion about these sexual things. The moment you, for example, I'm a Christian, the moment you open the Bible, the discussion ends.
With masturbation.
You can't even talk about it. So, for example, God is not against sex. We didn't create sex. When marital couples probably come, or there's some, they come for some kind of counseling around sex issues. The question I ask them is that if, for example, the part of your spouse's body that is very sensitive, it gives them a certain heightened sexual satisfaction. Who put it there?
It's good.
It's good. The person didn't create themselves. So if the person says, "Oh, Charlie, my neck is very sensitive," the person didn't create their neck. They put it there. And so our sensitivity to sexual stuff didn't come out from us. It was God who created it. So it means that God has a place for sex. He has a place for pleasure when it comes to sex. So if you look at the Bible is littered with all kinds of things about pleasure. So for example, if you look at Proverbs, I think Proverbs 5 or so.
Hallelujah.
I'm trying to dissect the thing that would, because we have all kinds of people watching us, and we need to place it in context. So when it comes to even the Bible, Proverbs, I think 5:18 there talks about the fact that he says, enjoy the wife of your youth, and he says, let her breast satisfy you all the days of your life. So the Bible talks about sex and pleasure. So sex is for pleasure, for procreation, for bonding, So when you talk about masturbation, it is grouped under all kinds of things in the Bible. when Jesus talked about the fact that even if you look at a woman lustfully, if already slept with a person, what it means is that the Bible places a certain kind of standard on sexual stuff. Yeah. So when you talk about masturbation, the moment you open the Bible, there's no discussion. So that results in a certain kind of feelings and a certain kind of impact on people's relationship with God when they get involved in that. So anybody who has a very strong Christian beliefs and practices and has a very strong relationship with God and all that, masturbation affects that relationship. It affects that because of all the guilt and this feeling, it affects them. There is some kind of change that happens to them when they get involved. And anybody who, masturbates and has a certain relationship with God, they will tell you. From the consultant, I have people who come and tell me that. So when I started this, I realized I can't pray well, I can't do all those things. So it has its own implication. If you go even into Islam or all kinds, even traditional practices, it has a certain sanctity around sexual practices. So it frowns on that. So on culture and religion, the discussion ends.
Yeah.
So then,
and now let's come to biological necessity.
So people now resort to medical to see whether medically what is the story. There are positive things and negative things when it comes to masturbation that if you read anywhere in a medical whatever, it will tell you. What I talked to you about the fact that when there is orgasm, right, the orgasm itself, there are all kinds of neurochemical changes in the body that helps people deal with pain, with stress, with cramps and all kinds of things. So they'll put that under positive, right? Then also people will say that it helps people able to explore themselves and find out what is good for them. And what do you call it? What is appropriate? What do you call explore their own sexuality and all that. That is also there. Then also when you read, it will also tell you about the fact that people, even their own self-image and identity is improved when they involve in masturbation. That is also there. People will talk about that. Then in addition to that, all the changes that happens, with even during sex and the benefits of sex, people can have that. But it is better when it comes to actual sexual relationship with an actual person, right? Then also, the fact that there's less risks for pregnancy, less risks for sexually transmitted infections and all that, it's also there. When it comes to some negative aspect of masturbation.
Let me pause you there.
Yes.
So that I go for a quick commercial break. Then when we come back, we'll look at the, like we've spoken about the positive, we'll look at the negative, and then I read some of your messages as well. So bring them 0202222054. Stay tuned, I'll be back. Okay, you're still tuning. This is the Men's Lounge, and my name is Foster Roman. If you just joined us, I'm sitting in for my big brother Ernest Odam, and I have Eustace Akwe, who is a sports analyst, an MC, and then an educational administrator. And I have Dr. Isaac Newman Arthur, who is a clinical psychologist and medical doctor. Doc has taken us to school, like he has actually broken it down. But then before we come to the negative implications, let me go to Eustace and ask him about your view on whether it is a biological necessity or it is a health risk.
Foster, Doc has said a lot. He's actually schooled us, like you said.
The way Doc enter Bible says, I enter the spiritual.
This one guys level 100.
I'm sure he could go on for like 2 hours or more. But really, from a layman's perspective, I mean, when you look at it, anything that brings about pleasure to human beings, basically, anything that brings about pleasure, you have almost everybody indulging in it. You gave some statistics and said about 40% of women and 60% of
48% of females.
I think those statistics are actually not a true reflection. I think it's way higher than that.
Higher? No, that's just between an age fraction. The 48% is just between 14 to 17, so they are just targeting the teenagers. And then we have about 63% male and 32 female. That's between 57 and 64, so above, so it's just within
so it may be higher. It may be higher because people don't go talk about it.
Exactly. So I think if you're generalizing it, then we could say 90%.
It can be higher.
Yeah, it could get to 90.
I think for a lot of people, 9 out of 10 people watching this program right now probably do masturbate one way or another.
That's true.
Sometimes even during sex with another partner.
Some people actually go hide after sex,
yes,
just to get themselves.
I mean, I have a few friends who deal in sex toys, these dildos and all these things.
Yeah.
I mean, and when they tell you the upsurge in purchases, you actually wonder.
For robot, no.
Yeah, I mean, the remote control. There are so many things that I recently got to find out because I was coming on this program. Obviously, I had to.
I didn't know because I used to research.
Oh yeah. And
you know, education didn't fail, baby.
So I mean, from a general overview, it's something that's very widespread. It happens. I mean, most people will not openly admit that I do this. Doc has people coming into his consulting room talking about it. Those are just a minute minority.
Minute minority.
Wow. Who may open up, but a lot of people do this thing. And then, as for the health benefits, Doc has shed a lot of light on it. But is it a necessity? Is it a necessity? And when you look at it from different perspectives, the religious perspective obviously is that not everybody is a Christian. Not everybody, maybe there's some kind, I don't know, but there's
some Christians, like Doc was saying, do not have that sort of relationship with God, or affected.
Yes, exactly. So it's self-stimulation, and that's all they see to it. Self-stimulation. I haven't done it. I haven't done anything bad. I haven't committed a crime. So some people are doing it with the mentality that it's all right. I mean, I'm not a Christian. I don't know what the other religions say about it, but I'm not a Christian, so maybe I'm an atheist, whatever it is. So when you take the religious part of it, you take that part of the equation out, and you look at the other sides of it, you see a lot of people arguing for the motion, saying that there's not a lot wrong with this thing because it helps me save money. I'm not going to go out there and spend money on a woman and whatever it is. Like, I'm getting the same kind of satisfaction. So people have reasons why they engage in this thing. I mean, primarily, and it's very difficult to categorize it as right or wrong.
So that said, let me just read some messages and then let's look at, because Doc gave us some benefits, so that let me just read some messages and then let's look at the negative sides, and then let's just make some comparisons. So this one is saying that Romano says, a survey I conducted as a reproductive health teacher on why youth masturbate consistently revealed that it emanates mostly from wet dreams in males. They get the feel of pleasure of ejaculation through that and then harness it as a newfound pleasure. In ladies, they get to know how sensitive their clitoris is while washing their private areas intensively. That pleasure gets them to be fond of touching themselves. All in all, most youth use it as an option for abstinence. It is still prevalence because there is still controversies as to its health implication with regards to it still, being debatable. T. Richard B.A.M. Phil sent this one. So that is, what do we call it? Research there. And then I'm Paul from Kwashima, and I was once a victim of masturbation 5 years ago, but due to fasting and praying, I'm safe, and also meditation on the word of God effectively. Masturbation is a great evil in the sight of God. This one actually have a question here, and it says, can masturbation cause dysfunction in males? Erectile dysfunction. So since it's a question, Doc, let me throw that to you and then.
Okay, so I will touch on some of the negative things.
But does it cause erectile dysfunction?
So I wouldn't say.
Being country his own jack.
So I wouldn't say. So let me start.
Okay.
So let me start with that one in terms of negative. From my own practice, I have realized that almost all the people that I've attended to have premature ejaculation have had something to do with masturbation before, especially for men. So almost all the men, I'm yet to see a man who has premature ejaculation in my consulting room who hasn't had. The reason is that masturbation, because you know where to touch, that gives you that sensation. You are able to stimulate that place, and it gives you a heightened satisfaction quickly.
Okay.
and your body is conditioned to have those kind of experiences. So it becomes your usual. So when you have an actual sexual relationship with a woman, then now you ejaculate quickly, because that masturbation gets you there quickly, and your body becomes used to that. So the little sensation and stuff. So premature ejaculation, from my own practice, you know, I have realized that almost all the time because of this principle.
Doc, since you brought that, how do we cure that one?
Bro, so
you have to stop for a long time before.
No. So it's a whole topic on its own. Maybe another time. It's a whole
dog. Okay, then now let's look at the negative implications, health-wise, and then we can bring to in there, you know, psychologically, and then socially.
Yes. So with men with a premature, I've also realized that a lot of the women who masturbate almost all the time find a normal sexual relationship with a man not satisfying enough. Also because of the fact that they know where to stimulate, and that stimulation gets them quickly there. And because of that, normal sexual relationship, or even prolongs their orgasm, duration. You know, so they also find normal men kind of sexual relationship not enough. And there's some women who only clitoral stimulation and masturbation will give them orgasm. Regardless of the length of actual sex, they will never have orgasm. There's some women like that. So that is also another thing with there. Then also, depending on how it is done, it can cause some kind of abrasions and all kinds of injuries around their genital area if they don't do it well or use the actual.
But sex can do the same thing.
Yes.
Sex can cause the same damage.
Yes. So that one also. So you can't say because I'm masturbating, I may not have those things. So those things too are there.
Okay.
You know. Then also, it affects marital relationships in that if your partner is not able to satisfy you and it's only masturbation, it can create problems between you and your spouse. What it means is that your spouse may feel inadequate in satisfying you, and some partners may prefer, masturbating than even sleeping with their spouse, and it can create all kinds of problems in a marriage. It can damage, actual relationships. Then also it may damage the self-esteem of the other person, because the other person may feel inadequate or not able to do it well or that kind of thing, and that can create all kinds of problems in the marriage, even for couples who do that. Then also it depends on why. Some of the negative may be the why they are doing it.
Okay.
So if there's marital problems and you're not solving them and you're using masturbation to cope, the marital problems become worse. If it is a product of, let's say, some abuse, and you don't deal with the abuse and you're using masturbating to cope, and the abuse situation is still there, you're not dealing with it. If it's as a result of other stresses in your life and you're not using other ways to cope, those stresses may still be there, because it may not be, we have problem-focused coping, where you actually solve the problem instead of using other things to cope. If you're not doing that, those things will be there. So other people may use masturbating to cope, and they're not dealing with the problems, and the problems may compound. Then it becomes addictive, where it becomes compulsive, and you cannot control it. And what happens?
How many times will it make it addictive or become addiction?
So when it becomes 3 levels, when it becomes compulsive, where you don't want to do it but you cannot stop and you have to do it. And 2, when it becomes repetitive, like, as frequent as you engage in and you really don't want to, but you find yourself doing it almost all the time, and it's like you can't. And it's also affecting other areas of your life, because all compulsive behaviors and addictions have a way of impacting your normal activities. There are some students who they will not go steady because they have to masturbate. There are some students who may, even their work is affected because they're engaging more in masturbation than even concentrating on their work and all that. So it also has its own size. And almost all sexual stuff, if it's not in the right context, may lead into some kind of, addictive stuff. So pornography, for example, if you start watching pornography, at the beginning, you may be cool, but with time, you lose control. Even masturbation, with time, people lose control. There are people who are in schools and they just cannot stop masturbating. Sometimes they are even in a lecture hall and they're masturbating. People may not know.
Yeah.
Some may even have to leave lectures and go and hide and go do and come back. So people lose control when it comes to
So
some of these
let me
things.
bring you, Stacey, in with regards to the social issue and then the mental. Then I come back to Doc with the clinical mental side as well. So I mean, how does it affect one mentally if the person masturbates?
Foster, this is another subjective point because
Is there more you any subject?
yeah, because you know it's one topic where you can't really give a general.
But if it's bad, it's bad. If the
It
effects
depends.
are bad,
It depends. What
it's
about
bad.
what about somebody who says that, well, I masturbate once a week?
But is it bad? Does it have an effect on the
Is
mental?
it any different from somebody saying I have sex once a week?
Yes, because
that's
what
the
Doc
question.
said, the endorphins and then the
What Doc said-
oxy.
Oxytocin.
Thank you.
What Doc said was not conclusive.
No, he
for-
was
for-
talking about the what comes when you're doing it with a real person. That makes it much more.
Doc, is it any different when you are doing it yourself or
Yeah,
when you
so-
are doing
so-
the enzymes that are
Yeah, the
dopamine
oxy-
that-
So actual sexual relationship, you know, has better results than masturbation because
So the
of
mental
all the
health
things
of the
with
person.
an actual person.
So with an actual person,
Because you get more
dopamine.
companionship.
Yeah, it's like
I know
you're having someone who loves you. You're having some time
Look,
with the person.
there are
So
people
They
who
hold
have
other things.
There are people who have sex with no emotions.
So when it comes
Yeah.
to sex, there are many things around it.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about masturbation.
So that means that
when
there's
it's
more
act-
to this
you see-
sex
you
thing
see,
than we
when it's
Of course.
actual sex, it also has its own problems.
Yes.
Okay.
It depends on who you're having
So
sex
sex
with.
also have
No, it depends on who you're having sex with, why you're having sex with a person, whether you're enjoying it or not, whether
Some
there are
people are just
problems.
doing
You
it
know,
for-
you know, there are all
for
kinds of
some
things.
reason, maybe-
So I would say that the benefits of masturbation is with benefits of sex.
Exactly
Right,
my point.
but
Okay.
the
negativity.
but not intimacy. So you lose the benefits of intimacy when it's just masturbation.
Wow.
So if you are taking it on that face level without, I said at the beginning, the moment you introduce the Bible, there's no discussion. The moment you
that's
introduce
right.
culture, there's no discussion.
That's how I've
We
tried to
can't,
leave
we
that.
can't,
So, yeah,
we can't even go that.
Oh, but Doc, even with regards to
Yes.
Bible,
Yes.
there are some scholars or Bible scholars who have the view that it's not a bad thing.
No, so that means there are no good scholars. You know, if for example, Jesus said, if you look at the woman lustfully, you slept with a person.
Yeah.
Masturbation is that one.
But then
it's
they
even-
also
it's
tell
even
you
of-
there's no straight biblical
No,
passage
you
that
see, the Bible,
defines that as a
the
sin.
moment you go Bible, there are certain topics you can't even talk about it because the Bible is very, very specific.
First, I
Yeah,
think with
saying
the
Bible
Bible,
never
we-
said
we
that
won't conclude.
masturbation is a sin.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
We won't conclude.
so that is why you see when it comes to sexual stuff, right? The Bible puts all sexual stuff apart from sex in a marital context, right, as sexual immorality. You see, and the Bible uses those terms to be able to do some groupings. It's just like you have footballers, you have football teams. You know, you may have Manchester United, this, that. But the Bible is so clear.
They lost
So if they lost yesterday. So if you talk about standards, the Bible standard says that even when you look at the woman lustfully, you slept with the
So
person.
that means you are saying we can put masturbation under perversion.
No. So in the Bible, you can put masturbation
When
as
it comes to
sin.
religious angle.
Yeah.
That's what
You
we
understand
say.
what you can.
When it's not mentioned,
No, it's not when it's not
sexual
mentioned.
morality
No, you
is
see,
doing the act.
No. So the Bible is saying that when you look at a woman lustfully, you slept with the person. Finish.
But with masturbation, you don't
You
always.
slept with the person, you've committed a crime.
Yeah, I
Masturbation
don't
is
sleep
with
with
the self.
anybody. Sometimes I
No,
don't
but
even look at
but
anybody.
you have
how
sex
do
with
people? No,
yourself.
how do people masturbate?
Sometimes you'll be there and then your body will be doing like again.
No, but there's some
self-stimulation.
self-stimulation.
Let me
based on
open
a
the
certain-
phone line and then
A
we
certain
can
mental
continue.
state. You know, people imagine things. You know, some even use pornography to masturbate.
no, let me
some
open the phone
think
line.
about some sexual
I
stuff.
want to answer Foster's question.
Let me open the phone line first. 055-565-7278. 055-565-7278. You can call and share your ideas with us. So you can call now. 055-565-7278. Yeah, you
You were basically asking whether it affects the mental health
exactly
of the layman.
Yeah.
I think it does, but in two ways.
Okay.
It could either be positive or negative. There are people who masturbate who will actually tell you that when I do it, I feel good. My self-esteem is up. Somebody else will tell you, my self-esteem is down when I do it because I feel like I can't be with anybody else. So that's why in the beginning I said it was subjective, because there are different personalities, different cultures, different backgrounds, different religions. So, I mean, you get different opinions from different people.
Okay, so let me read one message, and then we use the last minutes to look at how one can stop, or whoever wants to. So one says, no one can say masturbation is good or bad. It is a controversial issue. Everyone shares his or her views on it. It goes to say the word masturbation has not been mentioned in the Bible, so we shouldn't go into the Bible. Bible mentioned gay, lesbian, sodomy, bestialism, etc., but didn't mention masturbation. I have a caller on the line. Hello, good evening. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Please, your name and where you're calling us from.
Yeah, please. My name is Kobna.
Okay, Kobina. Where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Mataiko.
Okay, please go ahead and give us your view.
So, Romanus, the issue of masturbation, actually, no one can condemn the act.
Okay.
Neither can we support the act. Because, one, if we debate it from a biblical point of view, the Bible mentions lesbianism, gayism, bestialism, sodomy.
I'm sure I just read your message,
but didn't mention masturbation.
Yeah.
The closest of it was when coitus interruptus was being practiced in the Bible.
Okay.
And God got angry.
Yeah.
Yes, but then God didn't mention masturbation.
Okay.
That is the whole point. And so if we are to reach out from the biblical point of view, we should reach out to the person's conscience. You see, I really like how the doctor explained, because he was saying that, do you feel good about it if you yourself and him? If we are to tackle it from that point of view, then I think we are trying to do some good. But for us to condemn it using the Bible, then I think we are not really going to make any
but then we actually are not trying to do that. It just came in during the discussion. Doc said when the Bible comes in, there's no conversation.
That's the
so it's not condemning. We are trying to look at both angles. So Doc was saying that you can't leave the religious aspect, the cultural aspect, and all those. So it's not to condemn or to make anyone feel bad.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, but please, it's my time up for one more thing.
Yes. Okay, last one quickly, and then I can pick another caller.
But then when it comes to science, its health implication is also debatable. Some also feel it's stress relieving. Some also feel like it makes them feel good and is a means to abstinence.
Okay.
But then, doctor was also saying that it leads to low sperm or something.
Yeah,
but then I don't know so much about that.
Yeah, we spoke about the erectile dysfunction.
Is very controversial. That's what I'll say.
All right. Thank you very much. Look, I have 2 minutes.
Thank you.
I have 2 minutes. Someone's asking if it does cause low sperm count and all, but I think probably when we are wrapping up, but let's look at if one wants to quit the act of masturbation, not to really go deeper. What are some of the outlining things one can do?
Yeah, so when it comes to any, like I told you, you have to look at it from the 4 points. Is it causing dysfunction, distress, damage to everything around you, and deviation from social norms? So you would have to recognize that anybody who has some compulsive behaviors, first of all, you need to have a good perception about it. It's a health issue and not a judgmental issue, because when people feel judged and condemned, they don't seek help, they rather hide. So for example, if you're a Christian and you are masturbating and you feel very, very bad about it, it's affecting you. You rather, people shy away from church instead of going to church because they feel God will punish them. Yeah. At that point, when you are struggling, you need help. So even God is not judging you, he wants to help you. He's concerned because of the impact it's having on your life. So that's the first mindset. Have a positive mindset about your experiences so that you can you can help them. Then you need to be able to seek professional help. Go to the hospital, speak to a psychologist or a counselor about your specific situations and let them help you around it. 3, you need to be able to deal with all the things that feed that addiction or that compulsive behavior. So if there are pornography and things like that feeds it, you may have to deal with it. You need to be able to associate with yourself with people who can also help you. Then also you need to also pray and meditate. Prayer and meditation helps deal with all kinds of addictive behaviors.
Yes. If I want to quit masturbation.
Doc has summed up everything really nicely. You need to, most people do it in isolation. So if you are at the wrong place, if you are exposed to the wrong material, being on the internet, being on the wrong websites. Recently, there was a statistic that came out: top 10 websites visited by Ghanaians, and we have like half of it being pornography sites.
Lockdown.
So you know, it's something that's really out there. People are exposed to it. There's no access in some countries, so maybe from the leadership point of view, they could do something about accessing some of these things, especially to minors, where these things germinate, these characteristics germinate. So I think staying away from the material, I mean, more education, especially when it comes to the youth, the adolescents, more education on sexual consciousness and what it is about, and the damaging effects and all that. Education should be key in that regard. Then we'll be able to get a general, I mean, you get people generally to stop practicing masturbation.
Okay, Doc, quick one. Does it reduce the size of your YouTube?
No.
It doesn't. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for staying. I mean, it's masturbation as a topic, and you can't actually finish discussing it. There are a lot to talk about it. But then, thank you very much for your message. If I couldn't read your message, I'm very sorry. Thank you for the calls. And I had with me Mr. Eustace Akwe, who is an educational administrator, an MC, and a sports analyst. And then I also had Dr. Isaac Newman Arthur, I'm Newman. He's a medical doctor and also a clinical psychologist. But then quickly, in case anyone wants to contact you to help with phone number to say they can call you, or Doc.
Of course, my MC official MC page on Instagram is MC Extraordinaire 1, and it's mainly for social events, but you can reach me on that page. Yes.
Doc, social media or number?
Only WhatsApp.
Okay.
No calls.
Only WhatsApp.
Only WhatsApp. Okay. I'll respond. I respond to it. So 0249 802500.
0249802500. If you want to send Momo, my number is 0. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I did this on behalf of Ernest Odame. Until same time next week, your host will be back. My name is Foster Romanis. Good night and bye bye.